State Representative Jeff Leach is a staunch Texas conservative. Now, there's probably a very few things that we can actually agree on. But what we can agree on is in this case of stopping an execution of a man who didn't kill anyone. That's right, there's a Republican out there to prevent an execution. Now, let me give you the story. This is the story of Jeff Wood. Now, Jeff Wood is a Texas man who was scheduled to be executed next Wednesday by lethal injection on August 24th for something he essentially didn't do. Now, before I get into the details, I want to talk a little bit about Leach. Now, Leach is a two-term legislature that has spent the past week poring over court documents and speaking with the governor and the Texas Board of Pardons and Paroles, hoping to prevent what would be the state's 7th execution of 2016. Now, Leach says he told the Texas Tribune, "I simply do not believe that Mr. Wood is deserving of the death sentence. I can't sit quietly by and not say anything." Okay, so what exactly happened? What landed Wood on death row? Well, in the early morning of January 2nd, 1986, Wood sat in a truck outside of a Kerrville gas station while his friend Danny Reneau went inside to steal a safe, said to be full from the holiday weekend. Now, this is according to court documents. When the clerk, Keeran, didn't comply or respond to the threats, Reneau shot him dead. Now, Danny Reneau was sentenced to death and had been executed back in 2002 for the crime of murdering Keeran. Now, here's where the case gets a little complicated. Apparently, Keeran and another store employee had both conspired with Wood to rob the store on January 1st. Now, Keeran also had another employee as well. Now, both Keeran and the other employee backed out of this plan. And when Wood heard that, Wood backed out too. And so on the morning of January 2nd, Wood had no idea that Reneau still intended to carry out this robbery, even without the help of Keeran and the other employee. Now, Wood's sister, Terry Bean, said, "The plan was supposed to happen the day before, you know. It ceased to be a plan when it didn't happen on the date it was scheduled for." Well, maybe, Reneau should have kept that in mind. Now, after Reneau shot Keeran, Wood reportedly entered the store to see what was happening, and under threat from Reneau, helped him to carry out the store safe and remove a video surveillance tape. Now, Terry Bean says, "Look, it's clear that Wood is guilty of robbery, despite the fact that Reneau threatened the life of Wood's younger daughter if he didn't actually help remove that safe and commit that robbery. But nonetheless, he conspired to do so earlier. So he had been in the plan earlier, they abandoned the plan. That means he still had the intent to rob the store." Okay? Still not a great person, right? But good enough to say, you know what, I don't want any part of this after all. But nonetheless, Texas law holds that anyone involved with a crime resulting in death is equally responsible for that death, even if they weren't directly involved in the actual killing. Now, to me, that seems kind of crazy. But according to The Intercept, Texas is among 5 states that approve actively pursuing the death penalty for an accomplice, even though they lacked the intent to kill. Now, contrast that, right? The vast majority require intent as a prerequisite to seeking the death penalty against a party to a crime. But in Texas, if you're involved in a crime that ends up in a murder, well, it doesn't matter if you had the intent or not. You're still guilty, and you'll get the death penalty. Wow. Now, it seems obvious that Wood didn't intend to commit that crime, after all, and especially kill that person, especially considering how, according to Nadia Morales, Wood's then girlfriend, Wood told Reneau to leave his gun at home the morning of the murder. That would make sense, right? Hey, look, the plan's off. We don't need a gun. I just want to go to the store, dude. I would get like a beer or something. Why do you need your gun? That's stupid. So basically, he said, "Leave your gun," and then he left the room. Now, Reneau put the gun down, but picked it back up after Wood left the room, took it with him. Now, here's the other thing. Remember, this is Texas, right? And nearly everyone is armed. at all times. So even if Wood had known Reneau had the gun, he still might have not have put two and two together and said, oh, he's going to commit that robbery that we planned. No, because everybody has guns in Texas. So, but anyway, that's my 2 cents. Maybe I'm wrong. Now, her testimony, however, was not included in Wood's trial, but was included in Reneau's. Now, that's a bit of a critical piece of information that happened to have been left out of his trial. Interesting. Yet, prosecutors argued Wood knew Reneau would kill Keeran if he didn't cooperate with the robbery that he thought was canceled. Now, if true, under the Texas law, like I said, that would make him guilty of capital murder under the law of parties. Now, this is the law that states that a person can be charged with a crime he didn't commit if he should have anticipated it as a result of another crime. Now, Leach, back to the Republican here, who ranks among the most conservative Republicans in the House, a man who admittedly is in favor of this law and the death penalty in the heinous cases, he looked at this case and said, whoa, wait a minute, that doesn't seem right. I agree with this law, but not in this case, man. This case seems wrong. So this is a man that believes in the death penalty. But he said this isn't right. He said, Jeffrey Lee Wood's case has caught my attention unlike any death row inmate in my time in office. Once I started digging, I couldn't stop. Why? It's because this case is wrong on so many levels. Basically, he conspired to rob a store, called it off, went to the store with his friends whom he thought was unarmed, who shot their other friend who he conspired with, and then was forced at gunpoint to commit a robbery. You know what that sounds like? That sounds like a movie. But in this case, it's real. And now a man's life is hanging literally in the balance. He doesn't have much time left, man. And this is where you have a strange story, where anti-death penalty activists and Republican pro-death penalty people that are getting together and agreeing that this is wrong. And the more people that hear about this case, the more pushback there seems to be. In fact, there are protests that are happening at the governor's mansion, as well as petitions being signed by thousands pleading for Greg Abbott and the parole board to change Wood's sentence, to remove him from the death penalty. And according to Scott Cobb of the Texas Moratorium Network, nearly 50 evangelical leaders from around the country sent a letter asking Abbott and the parole board to stop the execution. But it's not just activists on the outside, it's also Wood's lawyers. See, they have appealed in state district court in the State Court of Criminal Appeals for a new hearing, citing many of the reasons which swayed Mr. Leach. Questionable expert testimony, mental competence issues, and jurors that are regretful. And I'm assuming they're regretful because they missed some of that important information. Leach says, right now we're looking back and we're trying to right an already existing wrong. And to that, look, I've got to give Jeff Leach a lot of credit. Now, a lot of people would think that all Republicans would be happy to throw the switch, especially ones who believe in the death penalty. Now, I think the death penalty is wrong in all cases. And if we actually didn't have it, then this whole thing wouldn't have happened, right? But nonetheless, I want to give this guy a little bit of credit here because, look, in this case, he sees something that's unjust and he's fighting for justice, where justice has fallen short. Now, it's a fight that I hope he can win. Because when it comes down to it, Mr. Wood doesn't have much time left. Tick tock, man. I hope we can stop this execution. I hope we can save a life. Hey everybody, if you liked this video, then please like this video and share. And if you want to see more like this, then please hit that subscribe button below.